Hello. In today's video, I am painting a slice of winter. It's meant to go with my summer's landscape and slice of spring paintings I've made. Uh, I'm forgot to do autumn, but I'll get to it eventually. Um, Basically, these four paintings, the four season paintings, will frame a painting I already have at home that I purchased at some point. That's a 12 by 12 painting. So it's the seasons are kind of a frame for it. Um, for the concept for this painting is that there's a river flowing across the canvas. We have to imagine we're viewing the river from a top view from the sky, and there is a fisherman's well at the center of the frozen river. That's why I painted the black dot at the beginning. And now I'm painting the river using it's a, how do you call it? It's an acrylic gel with glass beads in it uh, that I've tinted blue, light blue, and I'm using this to make a texture for the. It's an easy way to have a somewhat consistent texture for the river, and I bought two types of gels because I wanted to try using painters' spatulas. That the concept of this specific painting came from the fact that I wanted to use gels, and I bought the gels knowing what I wanted to paint with them. Now, I initially didn't plan on painting at this stage. The initial plan was to leave the first coat of glass beads to be by itself, and then I'd add a very light blue layer on top. But the glass beads came already mixed with white acrylic paint, so it was not as translucent as I thought it would be. So that's why I mixed it with blue initially. That way, the lighter colors I wanted to use would be put afterwards. The grays and the texture for the river. And I try to make the application of the beads of the beaded paint as even as possible, just because the river would kind of freeze flat. It wouldn't freeze with that much turbulence, if that makes sense. And also the black section had been made that wide with that much flourish and gradient because of the fact that I thought that the ice of the river would be more transparent. So I thought that we would kind of see the gradient beneath the water. To apply paint around the hole but not on top of the hole because I wanted the hole to have depth, I 3D printed myself a little pin, a little round pin with just a little tip so that I can pick it up easily. And I used that just to cover the section I wanted the hole to be in before applying paint. I had to hold it while painting, which was kind of a bother. But if I tried to, I don't know, glue it or anything else, then I feared that I would have trouble removing it and risk damaging the canvas or the paint underneath or around or anything else. So I went with something that I would hold while painting, which went really well. I'm a bit sad that the beads aren't as transparent as I thought they'd be, or mostly the gel of the beads, but it did turn out very well either way, so I'm not too torn out about it. Sorry about that. I stumbled over my words majorly there. And here I spent a bit too long trying to make splatters on the river. I wanted to have random splatters just to represent like I don't know, snow that accumulated in a ditch or on a bump in the ice. It didn't work really well. I just kind of made a mess and not much painted it up on the ice itself. I'm going to spare you most of the attempts because it just wasn't worth it. We don't see the change much. Then I had some gray paint and I put quite a bit of water into it so that it will be very liquidy. And then I just brushed it very lightly on top of my of the river. It kind of just the glue was kind of just applied to the top of the beads, making kind of a grayish textured layer on top of the river, which I feel really brings it closer to what I think of when I think winter or river, frozen river. It's not it's really good. I really like the look of how it turned out the river. And then the difficult part, I use another type of gel. It's called Gloss Super Heavy Gel for painters. Still an acrylic because that's all the paints I use are acrylic, just because that's the kind of varnish I purchase. I keep myself in the same range. And using this gel, I sculpted some hills around the river, kind of just a river bank and a top layer. I think I applied too much of at once of this gel because when it dried, it kind of yellowed. Just at the thicker sections, the thinner section are perfectly translucent. But the top of the hills and some of the crest are kind of yellowed. Now that's not much of a trouble. I just applied some white paint on top of the hill just to cover up this problem. But it's something to keep in mind. I probably could have. It could probably also have kept this shape better. It kind of I don't know, sagged, shrunk a bit compared to how big I felt it was when I was sculpting it, but that might just be a perception thing. One thing I'll mention now is that when I was sculpting the hills, I ended up accidentally hitting the spacebar on my computer keyboard that is above the frame here. And so it paused the recording, and so I lost quite a bit of footage. So I'm going to explain also the part that was cut. So the way I envision this painting is that there is a fisherman that used the hole in the middle of the lake to fish, and then there's a path from the hole to just the top of the hill, where there's a lit campfire for cooking his fish. The fisherman himself, though, is now nowhere to be seen. Not because I don't think I could have painted him, but mostly because in my other 3 seasonal paintings, the presence of people was more suggested and no actual person was seen. Like for spring, it was an empty bench. For summer, it was someone flying a kite, but the person is on the other side of a hill or things like that. So here the campfire is lit, but the fisherman isn't here. Presumably a bit farther elsewhere trying to, I don't know, make a tent or sleeping or whatever else. Fetching marshmallows. So here on camera you can see the yellowing of the hills. But as I said, I just added a single layer of white, and then since I paint over top this layer, still we really can't see the yellowing on the finished product. So yeah, for the path we can see here that I kind of carved up a path in one section with a circular depression for the campfire. We can kind of see it in the reflection when I'm moving around to the canvas. Of course, not right now because I started talking before switching the view. But yeah, it was I think I made the path too wide compared to, because if we think about the scale of the fisherman, the size of the hole in the river would suggest that he's fishing really small fish, or that he himself is really small, or that it suggests something about the scale of the world that's being painted here. And the size of the path in the campfire suggests that a few things is possible. Either the fisherman is huge compared to the hole is fishing from. Well, that's basically it. I would have expected or thought the hole for the fisherman fishing would be about half as big as a campfire, but it's kind of more of a third as big as a campfire. And the path is definitely too wide, to me at least. It doesn't matter. I'm not really painting to scale, and I really like the painting anyway. It's not the point, but it's something I didn't consider much during the process of painting this, which I think I could have gained trying to get more correct. But I'm still really happy. For the texture and color of the snow, I choose a metallic paint. Well, I have a metallic paint set, and the one I use for the snow is one that's called Pearl White. So it's the palest, whitest paint I have that has glitter in it. I chose one with glitter because I wanted to, when I walk at night on the sidewalk with this in the winter, the light from the lamppost gets reflected on singular snowflakes on the ground, which it's glittery. Snow on the ground at night is very glittery. Well, during the day too, but it's less noticeable to me. And I applied it with a sponge to give more of a texture to the paint, more of a rough, bumpy texture. Yeah, that's the correct word. And I like the effect. Now on camera, when it's under the bright light and flat, it's way too glittery. It's kind of just shining for no reason. But when it's on a more reasonable, less harsh light, it's a much better effect, and it will be great where I plan to hang it. So even if it may not look fine at times during the painting process, the importance is that it's good when it's in its final place, so to speak. So for the path, I applied some brown paint with a sponge. I ended up thinking that the brown was too deep, so I just removed some of it using the sponge that I put into water to make it wet, just to apply less evenly and more roughly the brown paint. And that way we could see that it's kind of a, I don't know, path that the fisherman like applied some sand or gravel to make it less slippery for when he moves around his campfire and his hole. So yeah, I like it. And since I already had the brown out, I started to paint trees. Um, the way I painted these trees is that I just made a brown dot for the trunk, and then I tried to imagine a circle around the trunk, and had snaking branches reach towards the circle I visualized in my head. And I tried to make some trees go off the side. Some trees I tried to make them more kind of diverse in arrangement. But I do imagine this to be the same river and the same park as I painted for spring and summer. So I tried to paint the same kind of trees. I didn't paint bench. That's the one thing. That's the main thing that didn't carry over from painting to painting. I just thought of the bench like right now, so I didn't paint them on there. And from above, it would have been kind of boring to paint these benches. They're kind of more of a 3D exercise. So from above, it would be too flat for my taste. And this painting already has quite a few elements. I don't think it needed a bench just for the sake of having a bench. The bench aren't really that important. I'm mostly bringing it up because this painting is part of a set, and it's interesting to think about the differences between a set and what I thought was important when. And I guess it is a good. It's a good benchmark of how I think about the season, because I do go sit on a bench near a river in summer, in spring, and in autumn, but I don't really do that in winter. In winter, the benches are always covered, and it's kind of bothersome to clean them up and sit in the frigidly cold benches. So I don't do that basically at all, even if I go near that river. So it's kind of cool that reflected in how I approached painting the seasons. The bench was an obvious immediate choice for summer and spring, but really an afterthought for winter, where I don't really feel like bothering trying to add it. I don't feel like it's just not my view of winter. Huh. That's why I love painting. I can discover things about myself that were more subconscious than anything else. And I feel like I learned something today, kinda. Not something major, but something nonetheless. I'm glad. I'm not quite happy with how the branches of the trees turned out. It does the job, don't get me wrong, and it does look good as a whole, but it doesn't really hold up that much compared to how I plan to do them. The branches they're not too random. It's correct that they're random. That was the point of them, but they don't feel. I don't know. I really don't know how to describe what's bothering me with the trees. It's. I think they could have been better. But I don't really know how I could have made them better. That's something I'll have to think on more later. I think it's because I liked the sketch I did of them too much and didn't capture the same energy, but that's mostly the difference between using a pen and using a paintbrush. It's not the same kind of line, the same kind of technique, and so I can't really judge it based on that. But I think that's what it is. I think I was prouder of my sketch of how I was planning on making those trees than how they actually turned out. But I'm still really happy with the painting. Don't get me wrong. The point of recording and filming and all that is to critique the painting and try to think of how I could improve. So that's how I could sound. I sound harsh at times, but I do love painting and all of my paintings. And here's a last minute tree. Um, I felt like it was the painting was kind of unbalanced in some way. Like there was more trees on one side than the other, and the trees are very visible, and that specific spot felt empty to me. So I chose to paint a different another tree there, and a bit later I also choose to add a final tree on the instead of on the corner or in the center, one directly on the edge, just so that I have more variety. And I painted it just without its trunk, even the final tree. I painted it just the branches peeking out from the side of the canvas. That was to suggest that there's more to it than just this slice of winter, this slice of the river, of the park, of wherever this is. There's more to it than just six trees. That's also why the two corner ones are on the corner. That's because that way they're not contained. They're part of the painting, but part of the world itself outside of the painting itself. Wow, that sounds insane, but that's really how I thought of it. It's For the campfire, I started by making a white circle that was to serve as the background of the fire. Then I painted just dots of gray around the white dot for the stones of the campfire. And then for the fire itself, I just used a fairly big dollop of red paint. I put it just smack dab in the center of the fireplace, fire pit, and I tried to make it kind of shapely and pointed, but that really didn't really translate once it dried. So somewhat of a waste of time, but it does look good anyway. And then using a paintbrush, I cut up a very cheap paintbrush to which I cut the bristles to make a very thin brush. I applied somewhat swirling orange streaks on the fire, and then I made lines as thin as the fire itself to texture the rocks. The way I see it, this makes so that the rocks are cracked and jagged, and the light from the fire casts shadows into the cracks and crevices of those rocks. And though it won't be that noticeable from where it's going to be viewed, considering where I'm going to hang it, I do think it really ties it all together. And I really like this painting. And with that, the very last thing I need to do for this painting to be truly complete is just to paint the edges black, so that I don't need to use a frame and that it feels complete anyway. And that's just how I like to treat my paintings. Just to, unless I want to do something special with the edge, I paint it black. I don't like leaving the edges of the canvas blank. It feels incomplete and unfinished to me. Mostly because I don't use picture frames for my canvases, so the edge will always be visible. And if it's just white, it feels empty. It feels, I won't say foreboding, but it feels wrong. So I make sure to do something with the edges. Painting the edges for this one was kind of strange because of the height that was added by the gel, so I had kind of to toe the line between painting only the edge but also painting the part of the gel that wasn't painted. But it turned out really well. And with that, thank you very much for watching. Feel free to come by whenever you want. Bye.